in which we find ourselves. I would like to thank Christian Fellowship Ministries. You know, I kept asking Martha, what is that? What is it supposed to mean? Oh, it's one of our partners. Thanks, Martha, for that. You've done us very proud. You know, I seated at the back end, and I felt like I was attending like a very big, vibing event. You know, there is a way of moderation as well, but most importantly, you have mobilized that so very well. But also to the participants that, you know, it's rare that we get in the rooms and people arrive on time. Well done, everyone. Thank you so much. I would like us to wish all of us a great conversation. I look forward to the ideas. I look forward to the recommendations. Great day. Thank you.
Another hand of applause. You are calling another one. Me, I've already called you. Don't call another one. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. You know, Betty is very creative. So I was stuck with her. Kumbe, she had another partner here. So thank you very much. Without further ado, I want to take this opportunity to call my sister Marie. I don't know if the presentation is ready to come and take us through this session. Thank you very much. Is everybody seeing the screen? Hello? Is everybody seeing the screen?
Once again, good morning, everyone. I would like to stand on the previous protocol. Again, I want to warmly welcome you. Thank you for making the time to be here. A number of faces I've seen before from last year. It's always a pleasure to see somebody again after a long time. You know, COVID taught us that we don't take things for granted, not so? Yeah, so it's really a pleasure to see you again. Today, what I'm going to share is findings from the Sauti za Wananchi survey. And this data was collected between February and March this year. And we looked out to see what are the citizens' experiences and opinions on national priorities. And because we have a panel that covers the entire country, we are taking this opportunity to dissect that data further to show a bit of what's happening in the regions. And to re-echo what Violet mentioned, this information is important for the policymakers to make decisions that are responsive to the citizens' needs. And if you're a politician, well, it could be an advantage for you. Not that I'm political in any way, but just to mention that. So, the data we collect under the Sauti za Wananchi platform has been utilized by a number of government agencies. And I believe that's why we are honored to have the OPM here, UBOS here. We have done we've collected some data with the Parliament of Uganda, with the Ministry of Health, Uganda Revenue Authority, the Ministry of ICT. I don't know if you all have this here. I hope everyone got a copy. We have many, so make sure you don't leave without a copy of this. This is the Access to Information Guide. It's a guide for civil servants. So it's like we compressed the Access to Information Act, and this was driven by findings from data that we have collected before, which showed that most of the public officials knew that the act is there, but they did not know what's entailed in there. So for that data that we collect, we definitely see that it has played a role for some of the duty bearers that have actually accessed it. And tomorrow we'll talk more about what's the discussion we had last year, if it had any impact for you and so on. So today, before I go into the findings, maybe I'll share a bit more on the methodology, because I know there are some new faces. There are people who have not seen this methodology before. We started with the baseline in 2021. And here we went to 3,000 households across the entire country. We were privileged to have UBOS play a key role in guiding us on the methodology, on the sampling, providing the maps for the enumeration areas that we are going to, so that we are able to clearly demarcate that this is the location we are going to, because before you select the households, you first list every single household in that village, then randomly select 10 from those. So they really guided us on that, and we are grateful for their support. So from this study, we go to the 15 sub-regions of Uganda, and that's where we have the 3,000 households. The way those households are selected, or the way the villages are selected, UBOS makes sure that we select the sample with the idea that it has to be proportionate to the size of the population. If at all there is a region that has a lower population, then we select less EAs and select a lot more where there is a higher population. That way we are sure that things are well balanced. So when we went into those communities at the face-to-face interface, we had the interviews conducted, and then thereafter, we asked the respondents to join our panel. The panel has 3,000 respondents. We have been speaking to them since 2021. And we use a number of ethical ways to ensure that we retain that panel all the way to date. We are in 2025. And we have more than 90% of those panel respondents that are still participating. We use a number of measures, and this is actually one of the measures that we use, that when we've collected the data, we still go back and disseminate to the people. Because if we shared this only in Kampala, it would never make sense for the people in Eastern Uganda if you've never heard what the findings were from the opinions that you shared. So we take it beyond Kampala. Now, in terms of the sampling, our margin of error is plus or minus 2, and we have a confidence level of 95%. All the work you're going to see here today is funded fully by Twaweza, East Africa. So I'm trying to prove you from saying that this was funded by some other person. No, it is very open, funded by Twaweza, and we don't have any biases. We are apolitical. We are not on any side. We are just ordinary citizens trying to make sure that we have better services which are informed by evidence. Now, to the national priorities. We asked a question: what are the 3 most serious problems facing Uganda? And the ones that we got that got the most mentions, that is 39%, which is about 4 people out of 10. That was unemployment and health services. I also recall that when the clerk was opening this meeting, she did mention that health was one of those key issues that are a problem for the city. Then that was followed by the inflation. Then closely followed by corruption, hunger, and then the inequality. Maybe before I continue, I'm just curious. Are you able to read what's there? Oh, you're using the paper. Should we do something on the light? Will it be better or it's the same? It will be the same because of that, eh? Okay, so I'm glad that we all have a copy of that. Okay. Then after that, we have a number of other mentions. Citizens talk about the quality of education. They talk about poor transport services. They talk about land and property issues. They talk about crime and security issues. They talk about disease outbreaks. They talk about the high taxes at 4% and then climate change at 3%. So those are the most serious problems that Ugandans see across all regions that are facing the country. Now we went further to find out at household level, what do Ugandans feel that is the main problem facing their household? Here, the mentions that the ranking slightly changed. We had more people mentioning hunger, that is 40%, followed by unemployment. Then we had health services, and then poverty and inequality. Then the rest were all in there. What I observed is that at the household level, we have a statistic of 3% of the households that say they are challenged by domestic violence. It looks a small number, 3%. However, if you're the one living in that household, this is a cry for help. In other words, I think it's the Community Development Office, right, that handles that. We don't have police here, but we have 3% of the households across the country that are saying that is a challenge for them. So it's something that we cannot afford to ignore. Okay, I'll move on to the next slide. So over the years from 2017, we have been collecting this data. What I forgot to mention at the start is that this panel that we have right now of 3,000 respondents is the second panel. We had an initial panel in 2017 that had 2,000 respondents. Then over time, when everybody was saying, okay, you're sharing these findings, but they are only showing us the bigger picture of Uganda. We want to know more. What does the Eastern region say? What does the West say? And so on. We then changed the panel to 3,000. So over the years, we still try to track, in terms of the most serious problems facing the country, what are those economic concerns that have prevailed over time? And here we see that we still have 39% that are saying unemployment is the most serious problem. In 2019, it was 24% that was saying that was a problem. We also have the issue of inflation. The proportion of Ugandans saying that this is the most serious problem has gone up between 2019 and 2025. That is earlier in the year. Then we also have those that are saying hunger or drought. Again, the proportion of people saying that this is the most serious problem facing the country has gone up. This has moved from 16% to 27%. However, we also take note that around 2020, those that were concerned about hunger and drought, that number had actually gone down. Probably things were going better for us. I just recall that around 2017, we had issues of hunger, food insecurity, a prolonged dry spell. So around 2020, that proportion went down, those that were having that as a concern, and has now gone back up to 27%. Similarly, with the issue of poverty and inequality. Now, when it comes to the public services, I know this is an important one for the stakeholders in this room because you're responsible for service delivery to the communities that are in your area. Here we see that when you compare those that mentioned health as the most serious problem, in 2019, it was 42% that were mentioning health as the most serious problem. However, we have slightly less people mentioning that as the most serious problem at 39%. Meaning somehow things have gotten better, however, it is still the most serious problem. That is over the years. And here we take note that around, I think it should be around 2020, this percentage shot up. Just hold on, I'm trying to see if I can get a pointer. Okay. This percentage shot up around 2020, 2021. Those that were saying that health was the most serious problem, to 52%, which is probably understandable considering that we're going through COVID-19. There were a number of other outbreaks that were coming up, but yeah, so Ugandans did observe that. Now, when we look at the other services like the quality of education, this one between 2019 and 2025 has not changed so much. We are seeing the number from 2019 at 20% of Ugandans that were saying that is the most serious concern, and this number has dropped to about 16%. When it comes to about 19%, that is the quality of education. Then in terms of the transport services, again there we are seeing a drop in terms of the number of people that are saying that this is the most serious problem. From 20% in 2019 to about 16% in 2025. Meaning there is some progress, but it's not probably, well, as much as we want to, since I'm hearing that there are concerns around transport services. Then lastly, on access to water, I think this is the one where we are seeing a significant drop in terms of the number of people that are saying that this is still a serious problem in Uganda. In 2019, there were 12% that were saying that access to clean water was a serious problem. 2025, this number has dropped to 8%, meaning there is some significant progress in terms of how Ugandans are experiencing access to clean and safe water. That something is probably going right. There are less people saying that this is their most serious problem. Now, lastly, on the issue of governance, we had two areas that we looked at. We looked at corruption and then crime or security. In terms of crime and security, in 2019, 11% said that this was the most serious problem. Come 2025, again, this number has dropped to about 8%. Meaning, even in that area, Ugandans are not, the proportion of those that are saying this is a serious problem has not gone up. It has actually gone down. You can see from this line here. Now, in terms of corruption, even here we see a drop in the number of Ugandans that are saying that this is a most serious problem. In 2019, we had 35% mentioning that. And then 2025, we have 27%. However, in as much as this percentage has gone down, this is saying that in every 4 Ugandans, you're having one who is saying that corruption is the most serious problem facing the country. That is about a quarter. Okay, so now let's go to the regions. I'm giving you room to open to the next page. That is Insight 3. So when we look at Insight 3, we see that there are substantial differences between the different regions. and what they feel is a priority. Because when somebody says it's the most serious problem, it means that is something they want you to address as a priority issue. So if you're a politician, these, and even for the duty bearers here, the district officials, these are things that Ugandans are saying we need to address this. So when you look at Western Uganda, the highest mentions were unemployment and health services. When we go to Northern Uganda, the highest mention is hunger and drought. That is something that needs to be addressed in Northern Uganda. When we go to, let me now go to the central, then I'll come back to the east. In the central, the ranking is still about unemployment, health services, inflation, and then you go to the poverty or inequality. Now, for Eastern Uganda, where we are right now, here we are seeing that the most serious problem facing the region, as per the citizens' view, is health services. We have close to a half of the people mentioning that health services are the most serious concerns. That is 45%, close to a half. And this is followed by unemployment at 42%. Then it's followed by the inflation, and then we have the hunger or drought. Now, when you look across, because you all have that, you have this graph in your papers. When you look at the, say, quality of education, just picking an example, we observe that the regions, Eastern, Northern, and Western, they have more concerns around education compared to the Central and Greater Kampala. Greater Kampala, this was just an extraction of parts of Mukono, Wakiso, and then Kampala. Then when you look at the issue of hunger, again we are seeing it's Northern Uganda that has the highest percentage. Okay, go on to the next. So here there are so many numbers, but I'll just get us to the key point here. We are seeing that looking at the different demographics, the priority concerns are changing. For example, if you look at the rural, urban, if you can all look at, if at all you can't see this very well, you can look at the rural, urban. And when it comes to unemployment, there are more people in the urban sharing that unemployment is one of the most serious problems facing the country. Then when it comes to hunger or drought, we have more people in the rural saying that that is the most serious problem facing the country. In fact, the number doubles. In urban, you have 16%, and then in the rural, it's 32%. Personally, when I saw that, I first wondered, okay, most of our food is coming from the rural. But this is where now we are having more of the population mentioning that hunger or drought is a concern. Possible solutions, maybe there can be further deliberations thereafter. Then I also want to take you to the education attainment levels. That is the very last list, the very last variable on education attainment. And now let's look at corruption and hunger. If you look at the three bands that we have in there, we have those that have not attained any education or up to primary. Then we have those that are in the middle, they've completed primary. Then we have those that have attained secondary or higher level. When we look at corruption, those that are more educated are more likely to mention that corruption is a problem. Now the question here, is it that they interface, they get to observe corruption more, or they get to understand it more? And the reason I'm highlighting that is because sometimes we get used to tipping everybody that we meet. The police officer, the gate man, you want to give them some water, some juice all the time. Is that corruption? Sometimes you find that some people do not think that is corruption. But in essence, it is, because you're trying to influence somebody's service delivery. Then when it comes to hunger or drought, here we are seeing that those that have not completed primary are more likely to say that hunger or drought is one of the most serious problems facing the country. Okay, so I'll move on now to the next slide. At household level, what does it look like? It does not change so much compared to the national priorities. But I'll just dive into the eastern region. And here we are seeing that 47% are saying that hunger or drought, food insecurity, is a problem for the eastern region. At household level, that is their most serious concern. Just go back a little bit here. When it was the country as a whole, the eastern region was saying health services were the most serious problem. But at the household level, when you look at the people you live with, this changes. Hunger becomes their most serious concern because people want to have those basics. Food. The next most serious are bundled up in inflation, unemployment, then health services. And again, we also get to observe that when it comes to issues of, say, land or property, I hope you can look at that second last variable in that chart. We get to see that households in Western Uganda are more likely to mention land or property issues as a concern at the household level. More of them will mention it compared to the other regions. And other variations we see are in there. For example, if it comes to food insecurity, we have much lower mentions of that as a serious problem at the household level for the households in Greater Kampala. So those are some of the variations that we need to take note of. In other words, we are saying that when policies are being implemented or formulated, they ought to be a consideration that these should be customized to a specific location because context changes. We have different lived experiences. In northern Uganda, at household level, still it's the drought. Then in western Uganda, it is the three: food insecurity, unemployment, and health services at household level. Now, we had a number of statements, around five areas that we looked at. Now I'm on, I think, Insight 7. It's tagged 7 there, I hope. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm at Insight 7. We can all move there. It's the last page down on top. Here we try to find out how well do citizens think the government is performing in solving the following issues. And we see that if you go to providing water and sanitation services, more than a half of Ugandans in all the regions are saying government is doing somewhat well or doing very well. So they are very positive about what government is doing in terms of providing water and sanitation services. And we also note that in Greater Kampala, we have 74% of Ugandans saying government is doing well. Then in Eastern, 68% are saying government is doing well. Then when we look at northern Uganda, 72% are saying government is doing well in providing water and sanitation services. It's the central region and the western that have a slightly lower percentage. But overall, we have more Ugandans that are saying government is doing well in providing water and sanitation services. Similarly, we see that when it comes to reducing crime and ensuring safety, even here, we have more than a half of Ugandans saying that government is doing well or very well in achieving that. And again, we are seeing that in eastern and northern Uganda, we have more than 7 out of 10 Ugandans saying that government is doing well in that area. There are slightly lower percentages in the other regions. Now, let's look at the other variables that we have there. We have creating jobs, we have keeping prices of essential goods down, and then fighting corruption. What we observed is that when you look at all the regions that we have here, again, northern Uganda has a higher percentage of Ugandans saying that government is doing well. In fact, it is much higher than the other regions. And personally, I was like, okay, what is happening in the north that needs to probably be replicated elsewhere so that you have more Ugandans satisfied? You know, it works best for all of us when there is more, when there are better services. We will have less concerns of you having to have a car alarm, a fence with barbed wire, dogs, all that. When there is better service delivery, we will all have more peace. So that is just something for us to probably think about. But overall, when we look at creating jobs, keeping prices of essential goods down, and fighting corruption, here we have more Ugandans saying that government is not doing very well on these tasks. However, we have a bit of an outlier, which is the northern region, that is more positive about what government is doing. Now, lastly, as I conclude, I will not share conclusions because we are going to discuss these, find solutions. Most of the people in the room actually implement and provide services for communities. So our last insight here is about, I think it was about media usage. But what I wanted to highlight, my chart is a bit different from what you have there. But what I wanted to highlight is that when it comes to getting information, because a person could be saying, but maybe information is delivered better in northern Uganda. Maybe the officials there communicate better. If it's a communication issue, then we should know how are citizens getting information. Citizens in Uganda are primarily getting their information through radio. That is about 76%. That is, we combine those that say it's the main source and those that say it's the other source. Then the second most used channel is word of mouth. You know that thing that I whisper to you, you whisper, then you whisper, back at the last person? We've played that game, eh? If I said paper, the last person might say something else. Yeah, or rapper, or labor, that will change. So this, again, we see that is clearly a risk because it's the second most used source of information. So you could be doing a lot. However, people are not are not hearing what you're doing because the channels of information are not very accurate. Then we have TV in there. We have internet and social media. We have meetings, 18% only. 18%. So how do people get to know what you're putting out there? Then we have newspapers at 5%. However, before I move on to the next slide, I wanted to mention that when it comes to social media, this is primarily used by young people. There is data in there that shows it's also used more by the wealthy and also the better educated. So as you use social media, be aware that it will not reach every other person. There's a specific category of people that use social media. That is the last slide I'm sharing. And I want to thank you so much. This data will be uploaded onto the Twaweza website. So for the academia in the room, it's still available for you to go and dissect it further, because it will be provided in Stata and Excel. You can do more. Okay. So,
just a moment. Just a moment.
Just a moment. There is something we wanted to show you. So from So from the data that we collected, I must mention, we appreciate the media. Because just imagine if we shared this and it just remained with us here. The people who participated in the survey will never know what came out of there. But we use the media to push that information out there. And so even for you, if they seek an interview, it's an opportunity to share more on what you're providing to the communities. So this is, what you're going to share is a clip that was done to get these, what do they call it? Yeah, vox pops. It's more like to bring the data to life.
Alan, where is Alan? It's Alan who gave a hand of help here.
Okay, as we wait for Alan to come, because you need the sound, we cannot play it without the sound. We could possibly take questions, so that we don't lose time. I should run this one myself. Any questions?
Mwanyaramai mwanyara research yeyo penga bebukuka kusima nabi. We want to fully associate ourselves as a cultural institution with the research by Twaweza. I've been participating in it for many times. An issue that I would raise, especially on the issue of hunger and poverty, there's a lot of reluctance. I must condemn our people for merely sitting. You must do something. Every other morning there should be something you are doing. There was an English king who maintained a man on a payroll just to gasp for him every other morning. So we expect that our people must be able to be productive. I condemn people who wake up every other morning and are not working. We stay in these communities. Younger men are merely seated. As you carry out further investigations and research, I want you to challenge them that to do something for your community. Do not just roam around. You see them, very many of them wanting to support politicians, moving long miles to even collect 2,000 shillings. Let's use these interfaces that we have with them so that we are not here to lament that they are poor, but they must be able to work on the situation they are in. We note very carefully our people are crying of hunger. My grandfather passed on in 1984 when I was about 5-6 years. He left or bequeathed around or left behind 300 goats. Currently, you find a graduate or master's holder, he has not got even one single one like this. Let's ensure that we become active, we dig, we do many, many tasks so that we are able to overcome this. I agree that there's a problem of corruption. But for us as a cultural institution, we want to go back to morals, basics. Let's ensure that we follow our culture. Our culture as Bamasava does not condone stealing. We don't condone stealing. So if you steal, it's an affront on our culture. If you steal, you'll be displeasing the king, the cultural leader of our community. So we encourage that our people must refrain from criminality. Of course, I want to put it on record that there are ample laws, sufficient laws in the country. If you steal, you'll be arrested and locked up. So we want to use this platform provided by Twaweza that please, let's not go into
in the next 1 minute. I wanted to guide a bit. We wanted you to respond questions to the presentation that has been here. Okay? The time for submissions will also come.
Definitely.
So strict directly 1 minute question to the research, which there is a hand here.
Just a comment on the youth matter. We have other data that we released like about two weeks ago. It was now drilling down to the issues of the youth. And we observed that the youth, when they are highlighting their most serious issues, their issues do not differ much from the rest of the population. However, they tend to complain more about inflation compared to the rest of the population. And in terms of their sources of income, because when you mentioned goats, it triggered my memory. In terms of their sources of income, we observed that the other generations, or the older generations, are more likely to be engaged in agriculture compared to the youth, that you have a lot more. However, it's good that you boss is here. However, we take note that we have a big youth population. How do we entice them to do more in agriculture and not dwell on selling their pieces of land to buy a boda? I don't know if that is a challenge here, but in Kampala we do see it. Now this I'm speaking just from my own experience. You see a young person selling their land that he inherited to buy a boda, and then the next 2 weeks the boda has been stolen or something like that. So it is something that we need to address. How do we attract the youth to embrace agriculture and do more? Okay.
Wow, thank you so much. Now, as we move on to the questions, let's appreciate her for that wonderful submission. Yes, please. Yes. Please, can you pick the flowers? Can you pick the research? Pick the research. Madam, pick the research. We are picking research from everywhere. Representing research, eh? Pick flowers. But don't fall. The basket might be heavy. Okay, like as we said earlier on, it's strictly question for 1 minute. Submission will come on later, but let's stick on the questions.
Madam, I wish to thank you for well-presented research. You and your partners have done us wonders. I'm only concerned about the percentage on domestic violence. It looks like it is more pervasive than we have captured. And my little experience is that the best people who can tell you about domestic violence are those we have not captured in our sample. Those are the kids, the children. They tell you everything that happens in their household, even when the old people have hidden it. That's only my concern. Thank you.
I agree. For us,
Very
if
wonderful,
somebody
because-
asked you, even if they slapped you last night, we will not mention. Most times, people do not say it. It's embarrassing, yeah. But
Yeah.
we probably ought to speak up more about it. Yeah.
Very true. You cannot ask a parent that is there domestic violence in your house and he tells you yes. It is very impossible.
Yes, thank you very much. This is CPA Robert Wamukota. Thank you very much, Madam, for this research. It's very good. Only that during this research, do you endeavor to put some recommendations or some solutions that are customized to the specific regions, so that when the government is trying to implement this or its policy or designing the policies, could tailor it also to the suggested recommendation or solutions to these problems we are having in Uganda? Thank you.
Looks like I'm answering instantly. It's okay. All good. So,
You ask
but as
one.
he's walking, I'm saving us some time. As you're walking to the back,
Yes.
I can say that for this specific one, we have not yet drafted the recommendations. In the past, there are some where we've drafted recommendations, like on COVID-19, on the tax body, for URA. There are some. But this one, we have not yet drafted recommendations. Yeah.
Thank you, Twaweza. Thank you very much. The research is very good, and to me, I really connect it with the just like a justification of our national development plan, because the findings are in line. We're talking of food security, there is insecurity. You're talking of subsistence production. You're talking of governance. And now, but what I'm concerned about was the findings. You know, I noted one thing with the presenter. You keep on saying the most serious concern here, the most serious concern. Now, but when you reached domestic violence, you said, you know, this is only 3%. But it needs what? To be focused on. You cannot just drop it. Yes, there is no statistic we are going to drop here. We are going to use every statistic. Why I said that? There is some pertinent issue that is in conjunction with what you emphasize most serious, inflation. That is to do with taxes. Where did you lose the taxation? You lost it along the way. Generally, the first general picture had taxation, but all region-wise, there was no taxation. But when you go to all the URA yards, you find cargo captured there for late or even inability to pay the taxes. So where did we lose that? Because it is an issue, not to lose it just like that. Thank you.
Thank you. As he walks to the next person, I'll just take the opportunity to respond. Thank you so much for noticing that. So for the taxation, because in the overall we had 4% and 2% at household level that mentioned it, it was harder to disaggregate it to the regions. It was harder to get that number because the sample now has reduced significantly. Similarly, on the one of domestic violence, I'm sure even that we do not have it spread across the regions because the sample was small for us to dissect it further. Yeah, but it's good you observe that. I'm happy. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
That
so
you are
much.
keen.
My name is David Wetaka, and I come from the City Development Forum of Bale City. One of the things I observe in the report is that corruption is given soft gloves. But while also we know that corruption in the government priorities ranks number one. Because according to the Auditor General, Uganda loses 10 trillion on every annual budget to corruption. And none of the other sectors of government receives as much. So if at all if we say it is one of the problems, we are handling it so softly. And that is to the detriment of the nation. And the corruption has begun manifesting in many ways, where you see government officials carrying bags of money, throwing to individuals to buy favor, which is not good. What if instead of giving people 80 million, you load their hospital or their health center where they are getting health services? Or what if you constructed a school from the 6 billion you're giving people to get a vote? What can 6 billion do? And what can 6 billion do in a local government? We stand here on a sad note that the teachers have been on strike for some time now. And if reports are to go by, the local government is also going on strike. It's not because Uganda hasn't got money, but this money is given to people as favors for political patronage. So why can't we capture some of these so that those who are doing it can develop some fear or chills and begin investing in real resources of this country, or investing the resources of this country into the citizens of this country? Asante sana.
So the question would have been, why is Twaweza giving corruption a soft percentage? Thank you. Gender balance, let me go to a lady as you answer and then we come. Okay. So why is Twaweza giving corruption a soft percentage?
Okay, maybe I'll correct. Twaweza is not giving any of these variables a percentage. It is the wananchi, the citizens across the country that are dropping that percentage. It's their opinions. If we did a survey here, the findings would be your opinions as Ugandans. So, but to Mr. Wetaka's question, we have had, I think it's about a month and a half ago, we released some data on the citizens' views around corruption. We did not disseminate it here in Mbale, but we had an in-depth discussion on corruption. So that data is there. We are not even trying to downplay that monster. We have spoken about it in a previous session, only that today we narrowed down just on this. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Betty, and from Mbale. My concern is about the northern Uganda. I happen to come from Omoro district, where what you are saying that is high in northern Uganda is really, to me, in my view, is like almost opposite. So I trust Twaweza because I used a lot of your information when I was carrying my research, and I trust your source. But in this case, I would like to know, how did you come up with this, that northern Uganda, they are actually doing good, and you would prefer to paste it somewhere so that all other parts of the region of Uganda could be in the same pace. When I look at poverty there, the cycle in my district where I come from, Omoro, there's a lot of poverty, there's almost very little education going on, unemployment, and as a result, you find mostly our youths are idle in those trading centers that you reach, and the crime rate is high. Evidently, if you go to Gulu Court, where Omoro Court is, I normally go there because I have land issues there. You find Omoro is the highest court packed with what? With crime, mostly crime issues. And when you rate them, you discover that because of unemployment, probably sourcing from poverty, education, unemployment, and idleness, it could be the cause of that. So how did you come up with all this, that northern Uganda? Probably maybe you concentrated on a certain region within the northern Uganda, but where I come from, even the road to reach my district, I come from where the district where the former Speaker of Parliament came from, was my MP. The road to reach even where his home is terrible as I speak. So when you talk of transport, education, all those things better in northern Uganda, it leaves me also wondering how you have carried out the research. Yeah, thank you. Not that I'm doubting Twaweza, but I'm doubting you this time because of that, what I see evidently in northern Uganda, not matching with Mbale where I stay. So how come northern is doing so well compared to other districts or regions? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's good to hear that feedback because we were equally, puzzled, wondering how come the satisfaction is much higher in northern Uganda compared to the rest of the regions. And some of the things that we deliberated upon were that maybe after years of insecurity, for somebody in northern Uganda to have a tarmacked road that can connect you from, say, from Gulu to Peche, or from Lira to maybe to the border. If you have that and now people are probably doing more trade, that could be something that is probably influencing the positive opinions, that they are seeing some change happening and they're probably more optimistic. In the regions where that is now my personal opinion, in the regions where we have a bad road network, I can guarantee you everybody is probably dissatisfied with what they're seeing in terms of the roads, because the road is doing a lot more for you. You're either getting late to work, you're getting late to your farm. It's harder for you to construct a house in your village because you cannot get there. But when you start seeing tarmac extending closer and closer to you, small trading centers are beginning to mushroom in your area. I believe that could probably inspire some kind of positivity in terms of things are probably going the right direction. But that is only my assumption. Maybe we need to do further research, but in terms of the methodology, it's solid. I could go through it again, but that is the perception that we have on that. Okay. Are there? Okay,
Yes.
we will take one question, then we shall play this, and then thereafter we can continue the discussion. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Twaweza. Sulaiman is my name, and I'm a monitoring and evaluation specialist. When you look at our data, we have high taxation and climate change. Scholars in the house, like my seniors, Abbas and Hamza, can affirm that these are serious empirical challenges for countries like Uganda. Now, when our policy research has such a big variance with empirical problems, it can be an area for us to ask why. Then, looking at what are the three most serious problems, again, the third section, we had the variables under economic matters, public service, and governance. Then we have very big outliers in terms of variations. Since this is a longitudinal survey, a panel survey, we can speak in terms of years, for example. Looking at, for example, unemployment. In 2021, we are raising by 30% to 60. Then from 60, we are again dropping by 27%. In public service, for example, health, we are dropping from 52% by 33% just in 1 year. We are dropping by 33%. Then when you look at governance, we dropped by 14%, then again rose by 18%, by 8%. Now, such significant variations for an analyst like me can say maybe these are outliers. And in most cases, for outliers, sometimes we just leave them. So are these outliers, or there was something unique in our research that will explain these significant variations, more especially in terms of the time and the years?
Thank you so much. Since that's our last question, those are very, very good observations and good questions. So I think as you said that the variations, we need to capture the context within those years. For example, if we look at you mentioned health, that drop, I think from the 52 to 29, there we mentioned that it's during the COVID period, there were other outbreaks like Marburg. It's like we were constantly having a health alert. Then after the pandemic, we had emergence of, having a department in Ministry of Health that was dealing with the emergency medical services. Some of us before COVID, we had, I won't say I had seen an ambulance before, but I'm sure there are a number of Ugandans that had never seen a medical team reaching their village to attend to a patient, or what do they call it? I'm trying to remember the correct word that they use. Like a team that is coming to pick up somebody and take them to the national center because they want to curb the spread. We saw more of those over time. And for an ordinary person, seeing that might indicate that, maybe things are getting better. Maybe we have more ambulances. We had vans at the district level that were, I think they had a tag. I think it was like COVID task force. We had task force teams at district level. So there are a number of things that were happening. And even communication on health matters increased during that time, post-COVID and during COVID. So that could be an explanation for that. When it comes to unemployment, now this one I'm going to just probably give one example that I think could be a possible explanation. I think PDM, the government started talking about it in 2022. Yeah, 2021, 2022. You could find, because the question we are probably asking is, what is the most serious problem facing the country? My assumption is that when people are seeing more conversations on EMIOGA, YLP, PDM, there is more excitement, there is probably more excitement that government is trying to solve these problems. I've seen it where I reside. I went to the hairdresser, and everybody on that street was very anxious that they are getting PDM money. They were extremely excited. Even somebody at work was extremely excited, one of the support staff, because there is a lot that is probably being done to mobilize people to get some resources. So if you ask that person if jobs, and because we know the problem with unemployment, usually we are lacking capital to start our businesses. If people are starting to have some hope that money is coming, it sort of changes their perception around some of those issues. So that is what I could say about this. Then, okay, you gave another example, but that one I didn't capture it well. I just picked these two. That the context within the time, you have to look at what is government doing. How does this inspire someone's way of looking at things? Okay, thank you so much. Now we can play the Vox. It's called Vox Pop. I've been reminded. I'm seeing people have raised their hands, but I'll give it back to the MC to tell us what is happening next.
All right. Thank you. The hands. All right. So I have a suggestion before we go any further. You know, we've been sitting a lot, yeah? We had breakfast. I know now the bodies are lazy. So just, Betty. Where is Betty? Banange ambassador. Where has she gone? Okay. Oh, speaking of that, I think we forgot to do this earlier on. In case you want to use the restroom, we have, you see that door behind? You'll go through there, and on your right, that is where you'll rest yourself. I am glad Betty already knows where to do that. But what I wanted Betty to do was to help us in a very simple exercise. Just, just stand up. Stand up. Can we have all of us standing up and then relaxing a little bit? You can even dance if you want. Yeah, you see? Stretch. Yes. Yes. The bodies are tired. Over-sitting is a problem, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Sitting for longer hours without stretching
we're
yourself
not supposed to sit.
is also another disease.
Yeah.
So please stretch your back.
Stretch very well.
The ribs, please.
Do that. I expect you to be stretching. Betty, come. You know how we were waiting for you. Hey. So for this 1 or 2 minutes.
Yes. Let us, Madam, can you stand up for an exercise? It is healthy. You see, I always thank God because for me, I don't know how I can even call myself. Wow. Because of exercise, I am what I am because I'm battling cancer. And when I don't tell you, you can't know. So always do exercises. You're going to follow what I'm telling you. I'm a survivor. Okay? I get a ball. Just follow what I'm doing. I get a ball. I put it here. I put it here. I pay better. I get a Bible. I put it here. I pay better. I get a ball. I put it here.
I pay better.
Okay. You can sit down.
What you forgot, you mentioned about I get a Bible, forgetting that there are some who should also get a Quran.
Next time better.
Quran people, where are you? Where you stand? Muslims, where are you? I get a Quran. I pay better. Muslims, where are you? Okay. Thank you. Let's appreciate her with a big hand clap. Thank you. Wow, that is so beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to appreciate the previous speaker who has been giving us here data, which is very important.
Yeah.
Now, before we go to another stage, I know that we have many questions to ask Twaweza, and therefore, this is what we would like to guide. That if you have a question, let's reserve it. There is no any question that is going to go unanswered because we've come here to discuss. We've come here to go with answers. You understand? So reserve that question. We are going to have a moment or a time. of panel discussion. This is where we are going to have question and answer. So reserve it. We have many people here, dignitaries here, who are going to answer those questions. And please, so reserve your question. It will be coming in that moment. Remember, we are asking Twaweza, but also I would like to let us know that we are also coming to you to ask you what? Questions. Because you're here to answer these things. You're here to answer these things, the locals, the cultural leaders, religious leaders. We are here so that you can discuss how best these can be handled. She has been giving us a research. But also we have questions which are arising or coming up from the research she has been giving us. And you are the best people to answer these questions on how these things can be handled in the best way. Ladies and gentlemen, again, without taking more time, I can't say wasting because we are not here to waste time. But I would like to say, without taking more time, I would like us to welcome Mr. Patrick Muhindo, the senior economist from the office of the Prime Minister, who is here to represent Mr. Mayanja Gonzaga, the commissioner. So I want us to put our hands together. One man said that when you say put your hands together, the hands will go silent. But I would like to say, put your hands together while you're clapping. And we welcome Mr. Patrick to come and have a few words to say to us. Please.
Can we add that handy clap? Hey, thank you.
Thank you very much, the directors of ceremony. You are many. I'm going to ride on the protocol already observed. And I wish to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of today's event, actually including tomorrow, for this wonderful moment to share with you what my boss, who was supposed to be here this morning, Mr. Mayanja Gonzaga. My name once again is Muhindo Patrick. I work with the Office of the Prime Minister. I've seen a few faces that are known to me and that also know me, And I say good morning once again. Yeah, so without much ado, I'm going to take a few moments because, you know, when you are talking to people who are already in the thing, we have researchers here, we have administrators here, we have politicians, and the media fraternity, you know. I've not had a chance to have these mics on my body before. So you can see how auspicious it has been for me on my side. So I'm going to really say something about today's event, Twaweza Group and your partners. You know, Twaweza is a Kiswahili word, I think, meaning we can push together. Sauti za wananchi is the citizens' voices. So all those really come on the fore when we are serving humankind. And so in that regard, we thought it fit that in order to reach the wananchi through service delivery, we have to come and say something. I will note the submissions revolving around that area for the presentation, but let me just take a glance at the NDP4. You know, a number of us here, I'm not reinventing the wheel. We already know the NDP4. And actually, like the director, one of the director or the MC said, we are actually here to brainstorm. Actually, sometimes these boardroom presentations can be a bit of boring. But I wanted to re-echo our minds again to say that we know our vision, the vision which is 2040, that commenced in 2010 with a shift from the PIP to the National Development Plans. And it is supposed to run for 30 years. We have already taken 15 years out of that. And then we are remaining with 15. Because we are supposed to have 6 5-year development plans, as you are aware. So we have already done 3 of the development plans, and we have commenced on the 4th. But of course, these development plans have been evaluated, and I think results from the 3rd development plan showed that we didn't perform so well in that implementation, on the implementation of that NDP3. So all these are lessons. Now we are in NDP4, which is going through a programmatic approach to doing business. So we have to, again, as we are seated here, we are in everyone's category, journalists, a technical person at the district, at the city, the civil society, religious leaders, cultural leaders. We have to come in and sit on one table like we are today. So you know the theme of the plan, which I will not really go into so much. We've been talking about all these things: employment, growth, wealth creation, and they are known to you. The goal is actually there. Marie took you through interviews on households. So we are looking at household incomes, which is already known to you as the goal. So today's event is that let's now put our heads together and not throw it to, say, a presenter or the other person or the planner at the district or cultural leader somewhere. So at a glance, that is what the NDP4 wants us to do. And it is each one of us responsibility to make sure that we come in full swing up to cabinet level, and we ensure that we move together as a team. That's what the programmatic approach requires of us. We have heard of national priorities. Really, I don't want to repeat them. We are talking of productivity, and these are documents that you already have. Because like I've said, I'm not reinventing the wheel. They are stated in our vision in the NDP4. I think even some of you have witnessed launches of manifestos now of politicians going around the country. The national priorities are known. They are not new. I'm not actually the one actually saying this is the national priority. No. Yeah? So we know them. We have to ensure that we just add in something small. Maybe we say, okay, let's enhance this to, say, increase productivity, value addition, you know. And then we pick a number of areas that we feel can get us there where we want to go into the higher middle income status. Human capital development, we are already aware. I'm happy that a good number here are at least enlightened. We shall see later, and so on. Private sector growth, we are talking of creating jobs and unemployment solutions therein. We are talking of developing strategic infrastructure. We've talked of roads and so on, railways. if you have been following those programs of developing industries, just go to Palisa Road and you'll see. Strengthening governance. Governance has a lot of things. All these priorities in details, if you read the NDP4 in detail, you read the vision, all these are highly articulated there. So, colleagues, we have the opportunities after stating all these priorities. Actually, we are so a blessed country that we have all the resources that we almost need. Actually, I think the president is the one who mentioned that I think Uganda is the best country to live in. Well, he may have used maybe a wrong word. He said even a fool can what? Can survive here. Eh? That's quoting him verbatim. But what I'm trying to allude to is that we really have all the resources that we need. We have arable land, we have fertile land, and like participant alluded, why would really a youth wake up, sit, watch movies on, say, TikTok, morning, evening, and so on, when we have all these productive resources? We have the natural resources that we are endowed with. Tourists are climbing the mountain here every day. And then someone tells you, me, I can't be a luggage handler of a tourist. Yet there are those resources. We have already told you the priorities are here. These are the national priorities. And you as an individual cannot pick yourself up and say, let me pick also on this one and be a luggage handler. The opportunities are there. And you will know them. The only thing is that all of us as leaders, now I'm talking this as leaders, we just now need to join hands and ensure that the blame game business stops. And we have to move as a team. Because money will come to you like the Honorable Minister of Finance. Nobody says money will come. But when you also what? Looking for it. It will not just come and find you seated. You have also to look for it. You know? So you have to what? Join hands. The other issue is we still have labor. We have a bulging youth. Where will these youths go? Even the industrial park across there, I think, is becoming now smaller. So colleagues, you will agree with me that the labor is still available. We are producing and we have the human resource. We have the labor that can even be trained on job, by the way. And that's why I think in the visionary leadership of the president, introduced skilling centers. Even if you dropped out in P7, you come and at least be trained on doing something. So the labor is there. We have a growing service industry, telecoms, and so many others. These ones are small businesses that we are doing. At least everywhere you will move, you will find either a young lady or a young man, at least doing a mobile business money, transacting. Even if you start with 1 million, they will be doing some transactions. So the service industry is there. Education is growing. We have liaised with our regional and international markets. A number of people are selling things abroad, many exporters. You are coffee growers here in Bugisu sub-region. And you will attest to this and you know it. So really, there is a lot of opportunity. Opportunities are there. It is not that really our books are lying to us. The opportunities are here with us. We have connected at least a number of districts with infrastructure. We can move at least with a bit of ease. It is not all yet rosy, but at least you can move from one point to another, even possibly in one day. You can connect from Tororo to Gulu or even to Nimule in one day. So at least there is some positive direction. Good governance. We have talked of good governance, and good governance entails a lot of things. Because you talk of democracy, fighting corruption, all those are there. The avenues have been put. The electioneering time has come, and and so on. At least people can be able to assemble and meet and talk, and a number of other issues. And like really I'm saying, these are things that I'm reinventing. They are there. We have them as opportunities. In other words, we should harness them to our advantage so that we can what? We can be able to move. Issues of, say, security. The research showed us that, yes, a number of households were indicating a crime and, but it can be managed. Like somehow these street kids whom I'm seeing on Mbale State streets, they can be managed, and it can be a collaborative effort to manage all those. And crime can be managed jointly. It is not a one person's show sitting maybe in the State House in Entebbe to think that a person, the president will come and pick, says a street kid from your side, even if Minister of Gender comes in, and without your local participation, little can be achieved. So there are quite a number of opportunities. Colleagues, I'm not going to list everything. Like it was alluded to, we are going to actually have a discussion. And so I'm just giving the tidbits, because I know there are very many others that you will actually that you will actually speak to in this room. So each one of us has a role to play. So in harnessing these opportunities, what is the role of us, the local leaders? And local leaders here, I mean leaders that are directly elected, right from LOC1 up to president, or those ones, technical leaders appointed in various offices by the president, say RDCs, by CAOs, commissioners, and so on. So all of us have a role to play, including, but not limited to, the civic leaders. We have civil society here. We have the traditional leaders here. The institution of the Omuhuka is represented. We have religious leaders. Even starting from your household level, you're also a leader there. Because sometimes, like a colleague I think indicated, some of this bad behavior starts even from our own homes. A child chases away a visitor from a chair. It starts from within there. So a child grows that chasing a visitor where he sits to watch TV is okay, and he goes with that. So some of these things, we have a role even from the household. Now, what should we do as leaders? We plan for this country. The National Development Plan is already there. Do we lack plans, members? Do we lack plans? We have the beautiful plans in this country. Actually, the documents are very beautiful. We are in the budgeting process. Actually, I came to Mbale to attend the local government budget consultative meetings. That's when my commission also committed somewhere else, requested me to come and stand in for him here. So he couldn't trek again the journey. We are in the budgeting process. We are consulting. The Minister of Finance is consulting. You're also consulting others. Since it's a programmatic way of doing things, we ensure that everyone is consulted, either through your leaders or otherwise. We consult one another. You sit down and say, I think we better allocate a little more resources here than this side. We have an issue here. We need to add more resources here. You get it? So, as leaders, be it at the district, be it at the institution of our cultures, or even religious, those are places you learn a lot from. those institutions when it comes to planning and budgeting. You conduct monitoring, supervision, and oversight of these programs and projects that are being planned for or being implemented. Colleagues, you make sure that you ensure proper utilization of these resources. And these are the things that we are talking about every day. Ensuring that there is law and order. That is now about crime, combating crime. Enacting bylaws that benefit our communities or that guide communities better. Policy execution and implementation. I think tomorrow we shall be having some discussion on policy. Community mobilization and mindset change. All these are our roles as leaders to mobilize our communities and to change their minds. If they tell you there is a program for PDM, why should you first be forced to what? There is something someone has pointed at, that you will get sustainable income sources from this project or from this direction. Why should you be first forced when an explanation has been given? So we need also to encourage our people to change their mindset. And so at the end of the day, we shall be able to harness these opportunities. Sometimes it's just about arrogance. Like we have said, there's a lot of tourism potential here in the Elgon sub-region. And you request the youths on the street, they say, you guys, I want some guys to come and say, ferry some things up there for the tourists. And I want to tell you, me, to do that, how will I be seen carrying someone's bag? And then, at the end of the day, it's the same person who will say, well, you toss me 1,000. I want to buy some airtime. You get me 1,000 shillings. I say, but this is the guy I told to come and what? Do some work. So the mindset is a very, very, very critical thing. And there are very many areas that as leaders we can actually change our people and tap into these opportunities. They are there, and actually we can survive in this country, like the president said, if we all decided to do what we are supposed to do. Fast forward, the citizens also have their roles. Because we may be here in the boardroom as leaders, yes, discussing these very good plans, having, all these discussions, but also out there, the Wananchi also have to do their part. They have to accept also to be led, first of all, because if they don't accept, you can see uprisings here. By abiding what? By the laws that are in place. They should engage in productive activities. Agriculture. I happen to come from Kasese, and we also grow Arabica coffee like the Bugis sub-region. But actually, I think I'll keep referring to my brother here, who said that actually his grandfather had 300 goats. And at the moment, if you ask me if I have 10, I'll tell you, I'll look around and say, yet I'm swinging in an office chair. So really there are things that we ignore, and yet you can what? There is agriculture. We used to maybe say agriculture, prices fluctuate, but you first have some produce, then you can say, but the prices are what are fluctuating. There is industry. There are many other small things that we can do. So the citizens, us on the side of citizens, can engage in productive activities, not just sitting there and playing game. Paying taxes as prescribed, of course, they must be fair. The canons of taxation. They must be fair to the Wananchi as well. To some extent, encourage these citizens to also participate in monitoring and oversight. I was in Nansana, one of the divisions of Nansana called the Busukuma. And someone was trying to develop his plot It is your plot, you bought it, but was on the roadside. And actually, the last brick was almost on the edge of the road. And the guys were like saying, no, but even where will the drainage water pass? So they actually had to push the guy a little bit off the road and said, no, you should not actually again cause chaos here for vehicles knocking on your house because you have built in the road. Much as it is your what? It is your plot. There are regulations of how far you should be. The building should be far away from the road. So they had to guide and say, let's move like 5 meters, I think, around, 5 to 10 meters. So we also have to participate in monitoring these projects, be it government, be it individual. You find sometimes conflicts arise because citizens don't come out to speak about an upcoming project. There is another one where I think it is hides and skins somewhere, but the effluent coming out of that factory is also becoming a problem because they didn't speak. Some Muindi is some Chinese building their factory, and they were not bothered. So now they are getting the consequences. Then holding us as leaders accountable. We have to be accountable. We have talked of accountability over and over and over. So do these guys ask us? The research that we have really just received about corruption, do we answer? Do we hold these meetings? The other day I was in Nauyo Catholic Church grounds for the Mbale State Baraza. I liked it because actually the citizens came out to say what they felt was missing. Whether it was bitter and sour or what, but at least they spoke and they said, here, no. About the central market, people are stealing money. I was happy. At least they came out and spoke. So we need to encourage people to come out and they check us, the leaders, also through such fora, and then living harmoniously with and in a clean environment. You talked of water and sanitation, but sometimes you see garbage being disposed of anywhere, anyhow. When some of us were still in primary school, we used to know, they used to pose questions, the cleanest town in Uganda is dash dash. A, Kasese, B, Mbale. So you would what? You know the cleanest town was Mbale. So garbage disposal has become a problem, but it starts from within our mindset. Even us who drive cars, you see someone has finished taking water from a mineral water bottle and just throws the bottle out. Really? What if it hits someone as you are driving? Huh? After eating your muchoma as you are moving, maybe in a bus or whatever, usually you see someone throwing a very sharp stick outside. It can go and chop someone's eye and, So even then polluting the environment. So we need to tell these citizens that, no, let's live in clean environment. You have trees around you and you start cutting them and not replanting. So really the environment is quite big. I'm not going to exhaust all that. But the roles, as you are aware, are well known to you. This was just tipping ourselves to think aloud about what we are supposed to do as citizens in service delivery. Now, so why do we have these threats or challenges? We have all these opportunities. We have set up national priorities, but we still have what? These threats or challenges of unemployment. Why? The poverty, we have talked about it. It is still high. Hunger is still prevalent. Access to health is still a big challenge, despite some strides that we have taken. Quality education still has some bit of issues. So you can add to this list because you all know these problems. I'm not actually here to actually lecture these things. You know them. or it was already got, but we haven't maybe pushed it to what? To another level. Because, you know, decision making can start from here at the lower level, it goes up until it reaches cabinet. And then cabinet takes what? The final decision. So we shall get the answers from here. And I know there are very, very many, because you know them. I don't need actually to start enumerating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. These answers are here within amongst ourselves. But let me just switch gears to one. That is the area of specialty that I'm doing in OPM. I sit in the monitoring and evaluation department in charge of local governments. So we're guided that let's look at the monitoring and evaluation processes of these programs and projects to enrich the mwananchi. We have done all this research. We have seen we have the opportunities. We have set our priorities. The challenges are still lingering within us. What is the issue? What are we not doing? Like I said in the previous slide, the answer is here. But for me, I'm going to look at one of these. There's a monitoring and evaluation specialist I had in the audience. So really, all these processes are not also new to us. So these are just management processes to track on progress of ongoing what? Projects and programs. To monitor them on a daily basis, or on a monthly basis, or on a weekly basis, to get your expected what? Or planned results. You have to look at the quality, the quantity of the services being provided, the timelines, provide feedback, so that we can know whether we are moving well. Then evaluation, you assess now whether really what we did was efficiently done. Now you go into the nitty-gritties of the numbers. If the project was supposed to cost 1 billion, did we overshoot? Were there cost overruns? Were there delays? Was it on the right track? What happened? So you use this evidence now to what? To again give feedback. For us, that is now the area of our concern. But like I've said, don't ask me questions that, you didn't say this. No, the answer is within you of what we should do. Me, I'm going to zero on what? On the monitoring and evaluation processes. There are elements in the M&E which I believe now a good number of us are aware of. You have to have a framework, you have to have a plan, you have to have employees who will do that. Then supervision, you have a champion, you must have a champion. And you have to share this information, because the question is then what after you've done all these good reports? Because it's like if Twaweza had done this research and then keeps with the reports, then what? Would you have actually had a discussion today? Have a discussion and escalate it going forward. So these are all elements of the M&E system that we have to what? We have to use. And then fast forward, I don't want to dwell so much on most of the things that we are doing on a daily basis. Now, I want to bring it back to the local leaders. What is the importance of this? And we know it already. To help us ensure accountability and transparency. If the plan was talking of 1 billion, really, did you implement this project with the amount we had planned transparently and you put it there? We enhance public trust. When you monitor and put the results in public, you enhance public trust, ensuring that we improve the service delivery outcomes. We have to make sure that these are delivered in a timely manner. Promising, say, a health center that takes ages, that's when you will hear someone saying, yeah, rather going to a government facility, I would rather go to a private facility. Maybe because that one was already put there on Republic Street, and you know, there are people there, people will help you to sit down, and then it helps you to take decisions after you get these M&E reports. Or even these research reports that we have just received. What do? You take decisions. Of course, some of these now the reports and numbers. Of course, government of Uganda normally takes you to UBOS, which is the official government data area. Of course, someone will tell you quote the source. So the source usually government relies to is the UBOS in accordance with the law, the UBOS Act. So even the data that we have just received can just be corroborated with what? With the one of UBOS that we have on the system here. And then if there's no significant difference between, say, the research that was conducted by Twaweza and what is on the UBOS report is taken up, and you make a decision. It helps you to have ownership of these projects and programs by involving what? Beneficiaries and other stakeholders. And then, of course, it is a way of what? Of also improving our capacity and learning. So actually, M&E were introducing a learning component. It is actually going now to be called MEL, not just M&E. We're adding monitoring, evaluation, and learning. So these are some of the uses that local leaders can pick from the monitoring and evaluation and learning. Now, in today's discussion, I'm going to zero down on, say, the role of the RDCs or RCCs in monitoring and evaluation. I'm just picking that example, but you can just bring it down to your level in whichever capacity that you are. Because here the RCC or the RDC is in the Constitution under that section, under that article of the Constitution, and has a number of roles that they are supposed to play. So, coordinating, supervising, monitoring government projects and programs. So, when you get back here to the local level, someone will tell you, for me, I'm not empowered to do that. But you are. There is legislation that has empowered you to do that. Or there are guidelines that have empowered you to do that. So I just picked out one. If we have, say, the RCC here, he's a very powerful person that can do this on behalf of the president in the areas of jurisdiction. So they will have to ensure that they coordinate all these oversight roles and coordination, as well as providing guidance. Of course, a number of us have our supervisors and whips. So if an RDC or RCC came and spoke to, say, the political leadership of the district or the city, take it in good faith and know that that person is also doing their work. I come from Office of the Prime Minister to come and give or share an idea between you and me. Take it positively, unless if you have a contrary view. But that is the direction we have to take as local leaders in monitoring and evaluation. Each one of us is empowered in a way to do what you are supposed to do in ensuring that the opportunities that we have and the priorities that we have set are all met in the planning period. Because if we have our 5 years, when we are at the end of 5 years trying to get on to the evaluation table, we should say that at least we have achieved what we had planned to do. Going to the best practices. Now, here you just need to get informed about all these programs. Some of us don't read. Actually, you can have a book there or a work plan of a district, but you don't know that there's a project being planned. Or maybe some program which is being implemented. PDM, for example, I've talked about it. Some people say it is for the other group. They don't consider us. It is only for the yellow team. So, but have you gone there and they reject plans of the local governments, the national development documents, national development plan, the manifestos, read them and be informed about them. That's when you'll be able to ensure that you guide and say there is an opportunity here which you can tap into. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you will again be also misleading the society as leaders. Starting from, say, the RCC level or RDC level. We have to read, know the project. What time is it going to take? What is the lifespan of this project? If it is a program, how much money has come? Sometimes we go running after things which we don't know. How much is the cost? Just hear figures being thrown around. But if you are aware of what is going to be spent on a particular project, then you can actually track and ask questions. Then you have to have a definition of your monitoring. Of course, will it be monthly? Will it be weekly? Will it be quarterly? So as a leader, you should know how to define your monitoring schedule. You prepare the plan for that matter, and then also communicate the results that you have picked out of the engagement that you have had. So all these are best practices that we try to use, and that's when we can give proper feedback versus the national priorities. And of course, we normally talk about having peculiar differences in regions, but by and large, when something is agreed upon as a national priority, it is actually well researched and it is cutting across the whole country. It is like how UNEB sets one exam for the whole country. So in most cases, they will know that the curriculum is the same, fairly the same, and the learners should be able to pick at that same rate. We do have challenges, indeed. There is no activity that does not have a challenge. Like it has been alluded, sometimes resource constraints. Resources, yes, in terms of too many priorities or too many needs that are required, and we fail to procure maybe tools like computers, vehicles, and so many others, or even hiring the resources, or even paying adequately. Like members are saying, you see, there are disparities in salaries, and this issue has been discussed. You know, it will be a phased manner, and it has been communicated by our leaders. Let's go with that. Let's give a benefit of doubt to our leadership that has promised us to be increasing category by category, and we should not just all move at once and saying we demand, say, a science scale salary, or I want to also get near to the cow, or to the TC. No. So, unless if you want, maybe even private sector also guides themselves in their companies about the remuneration they give. So resources are actually constrained. There are a number of things, programs and projects that government is undertaking. And in the 5 years, like the priorities that we looked at, infrastructure is consuming a big chunk. And I know, yes, there are areas where infrastructure is still a challenge. And you have to bear, we shall get there. Then data collection challenges is also another issue. Because like in the discussion like we had earlier, there are some things that we need to harmonize in the data collection areas, the sample spaces the samples that we pick on. And the other issue is about corruption. And corruption, I think, is another monster that we need to tackle head on. But corruption is not only just gaining from a project. There's also intellectual corruption, by the way. You can refuse to understand something, even when you know the truth. That is also corruption. Yes. So corruption, you can be just intellectually corrupt and you just say, I will not take this person's view. And you ignore it, even when it is the correct way to go. So let's all fight it together. There are laws and regulations in place. Of course, that's on the enforcement side, but also there is also sensitization, and there is also a part of the citizens reporting these corruption tendencies. If you go to a hospital and say, tell you to pay. The other day when I was in Nauyo, the permanent secretary, Minister of Health, requested the members of the city in Namatala Center for, said, please, you report that person. And even she mentioned the name, allegedly. I don't know if it was true that that person was soliciting money from them. She said, report them. Because why should you wait to first pay, then you cry later? So like when you go to the market, they cheat you, then you come back home and quarrel with your wife or husband. So report this corruption. Then we still have capacity gaps, yes. A few of us may be skilled in these areas of monitoring and service delivery, but we are continuing. Even in this room, some of us will maybe pick a leaf and say, okay, I think I can go and do something in that regard. Well, inadequate follow-up mechanisms, also a challenge. Just sit back in your office in your morning, 8 a.m., go back at 5, and that is it. And then stakeholder engagements. Sometimes we have had issues where a project comes, they say, the land is here, start a project. But these stakeholders are like not in the know. They're just there, they just see structure coming up, ask, who is this one? Hey, this is Mbale High Court. Hey, now we didn't know. So sometimes we need to involve stakeholders, even the citizens down there. We need clear objectives and indicators. Sometimes our indicators need sharpening. Some of them which are cake. You look for the data and you can't get it. Even if you try to break it down, you can't get the data. The statisticians are there. They know how to sharpen these indicators so that it is easier to collect the data. You know, you can go and look for, you may want to write a report, but you're just like almost on guesswork. You don't have the statistics and you don't have the data. The strategies have like almost touched them. Partnering with now civil society like Twaweza, Christian fellowships, and others. CSBAG, I saw them also include very active in these areas. So there are quite a number of partners that we can engage at our local levels. We can also leverage technology. Sometimes you can just sit on your computer and punch in your report and you're done. Capacity building and training, which I've already talked about. We have to also promote local ownership of these M&E processes, like at the districts, or even at the town councils, at every level that we are. And then deliberate policies to stamp out corruption, I've already talked about them. And the budgeting within the prioritized resources. Sometimes we talk about resources being, in MTF being small, but when we have also not prioritized what we're supposed to do amidst the resources that we have. I want to conclude by saying that what do we do getting out of this room? As we get out of this room, let's have a stock of projects and programs in our areas of jurisdiction. Because really, if the program is there, for example, the WEPS, the MIOGA, the PDM, and whatever, programs are ongoing. Let's get out of here and get to know what is going in our areas of jurisdiction, and then encourage people to get involved. We develop our plans, and then checklists and, templates to collect the data. We participate in these activities in local governments, like I alluded to, barazas and meetings. Give feedback, and then we design also what? Follow-up mechanisms for these issues that we have picked as emerging. And in that regard, we shall have already hints on how best to tap into all these opportunities as listed in our national priorities. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to stop here and listen more to you, because this is not a day for actually giving lectures. It is a day of having an interaction. I may not have all the answers as I speak, but we can interact and share ideas arising out of the researches, the data that we have, the statistics, the NDPs, the manifestos, and so on. So we come out of here, and if we come out of here with something, it can even reach cabinet, cascading it upwards. I thank you very much, Bwana Director of Ceremony.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, give it again for our guest of honor, who is none other than Patrick Muhindo. Betty, bayaya bitubi. Please take over.
This time, which one?